Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Way is in Training. This is a podcast exploring how warriors should train and fight, as well as how they should live. We will talk about technique, but we'll also dive deep into fitness, mindset, and strategy. We will explore leadership and philosophy as well. So whether you are a young soldier, a veteran police officer, a responsible armed citizen, or simply someone looking for an authentic life, let's examine how the lessons of combat and preparation for it can help us fulfill our potential. Let's explore the way together and learn how the discipline of training can show us our true selves amidst the chaos of life.
Hey everybody, welcome back. On this episode, I've got Anthony Villanueva. We actually met online first through the ACE virtual shooting system because we're both pretty active in there. And then we started talking on IG and, all the various social medias. So a really good shooter, phenomenal shooter who also just started a law enforcement career. So I'm kind of interested to see how those two experiences are going to balance each other out. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, Tony?
Hey everyone! Once again, my name is Anthony Villanueva, and it's funny that I tell a lot of people that my only personality is shooting now, and it's like I don't really have any other hobbies outside of that. But I did meet Matt through Ace VR, and it's been fun trying to use gaming and dry fire and training together to get better. So I did that for a little while. Right now, I did start a new career in law enforcement. So rather kind of, I guess, late in my life. It's actually my second career or my second career path. So I'm looking forward to see where this brings me, because before this, I was in something completely unrelated to it.
What were you doing before?
So I was born and raised in California, and I will still claim California as family. I have a lot of shooters out there, and I still firmly believe a lot of the best shooters come out of there too. I mean, you say that I'm a really good shooter, but I think I'm okay. I'm good. There's a lot of good shooters out there, and a lot of great ones taught me back when I lived there. And back in California, I was coaching, and then I moved out of California due to COVID. So then I made my way out here to Texas a few years ago.
So it's kind of interesting what you just said, because I know exactly how you feel about, not feeling like you're a really good shooter, right? But let's put it in perspective. Like, out of the people that either carry a gun for a living or for self-defense, you're probably in the 99.99 percentile for the entire world. Like, you realize that, right? Like, most people who carry a gun and are professionals, like the average Green Beret, and this is far better than the average military member, right? The average Green Beret is probably about low B class, maybe high C class when it comes to shooting.
That's crazy.
When you go to an SMU and you're talking about high B class to low A class is probably the average. And all they do is CQB and shoot, right? And that's actually, who Frank Proctor is?
Yeah.
So Frank is the guy that kept yelling at me about competition for years, because we were both in the same group in Special Forces. And I finally went and did it and was just humbled. And it was really amazing for me, because like I didn't expect to be the best at it. You know what I mean? Like I hadn't trained specifically for competition, right? But I will admit that I had a comfortable level of arrogance about my shooting skill. And I figured that if I wasn't near the top, it was going to be more because of rule sets and sporting aspects that were different than what I did. Cue Morgan Freeman's narration behind me going, but in fact, he did not do well. Right? I got curb stomped and my lunch money got taken, and I realized how good actually is. And I think when you spend a lot of time around like high-level shooters, high-level competitive shooters, it gives you a skewed perspective on what the skill level out there in the world actually is, because it's not that high. It's just not. I mean, if you're a B class shooter, you know who Ron Avery was?
No.
He ran the Tactical Performance Center out in Utah.
Okay.
Really good shooter. He's passed now, unfortunately. He's also retired. Was also retired law enforcement. And I heard a quote from him once that B class in USPSA is about like a black belt.
Mm-hmm.
And I really agree with that. Like, it'd be different for like something like BJJ because the belts are really skewed. Like if you're a purple belt in BJJ, you'd be like a black belt in judo. You know what I mean?
Okay. Okay.
But
Yeah.
like the average martial art, he's about right. So you're talking about, you know, a B class shooter is, you know, heads and shoulders above what even people that are into guns and self-defense and shooting combatively can typically do if they don't compete or train like a competitor trains.
Mm-hmm.
And regardless of how you train, I've never met anyone who could walk into competition and be a masterclass shooter. I know guys that made it very quickly. Like I was fortunate enough that I made it very quickly, but nobody, like no matter, I don't care if you were an SMU, I don't care if you were a Green Beret, I don't care if you were a SEAL, I don't care if, you know, you're the guy on his farm with the dummy targets, you know, practicing your appendix draw over and over again. Like you're not going to, yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You're not going to be a master class or grandmaster class shooter in USPSA just walking into a cold. Like it's the only mechanism I found for getting that good.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? How do you think like you kind of agree with that or?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, that there's rules in every game that could help, that could limit your, I guess, rating or result. But I mean, you take the top shooters who don't compete, throw them into USPSA, then you'll really see the wheels come off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it has to do with two things, right? It's got to do with the holes in their game because USPSA forces you to be more well-rounded than you want to be. It really does.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
you're doing things like table starts and, you know, support hand or weak hand only shooting. You know, you're doing all these skills that you probably wouldn't spend a whole lot of time on if they weren't making you do it so you could score better. Right.
Right.
So I think that's part of it. Maybe three things. I think the second piece of it is exposure to what's possible. Like, you know, the old story about the 4-minute mile, right? Nobody could do it. And
Until
one person did it. And now it's like high school people do it. Right.
Yeah.
So it's exposure to what's possible. And then I think the really important piece of this, and you've gotten a taste of this now that you're in law enforcement, but most people who aren't competitors don't train task stacking, for lack of a better word. They don't train skills in combination. So they do a bunch of isolation drills. They might have a phenomenal bill drill. They might have, you know, a great 4 aces. They might have really good Blake drills, right? They might have all these pieces at a high enough level, but they don't get used to combining all those blocks under stress in random patterns.
Yeah.
And competition makes you do that. And like when I was struggling, because when I say I made master real quick, that does not mean I shot well at matches. Like not even close. It's because I've been doing, you know, 20 plus years of stand and shoot stuff
Mm-hmm.
at you know, institutionally what would be considered a high level. But I couldn't win a match to save my life. So I did this deep dive into, you know, why can't I do this? And one of the things that I came across was this concept of, you know, all I had done was I had built the chunks. They call it chunking. I'd made the Lego blocks. I hadn't practiced putting the Lego blocks together to make something that would actually hold up weight.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to work on that. And competitors do that. Like, look at all the stuff. Like, look at the way Eric Graffel trains. Look at the way, I mean, everybody, really, all the top guys, you see them do it. They'll set up little stages and run them a bunch of different ways. And it's never the same twice. And they're working on exactly that ability to put those building blocks together under stress. And that's something I think maybe it's gotten better, but it was sorely lacking in my career for both military and law enforcement, even when you get to the units that were at a high level. Everybody drilled stuff in isolation until their hands bled.
Mm-hmm.
But then when they tried to do it in a run and gun course, which would be like the equivalent of a stage, nobody did that well because they hadn't trained it, you know?
Yeah.
So that's kind of my theory on why competition is so good for your shooting. Like, I really think it makes a difference, you know?
Yeah, I agree. And we see it like, actually, I've been seeing a lot of law enforcement get into competitions. Like, I know that I think there was a match in There's either a state match or a section match. It was like the Southeast Law Enforcement Classic or something like that.
Yeah, a buddy of mine invited me to come down to that. Do you know who Les Martoni is?
Yes.
He's less pepperoni on the internet, right?
Hey, buddy.
So Les is actually the guy that took my lunch money at my first match.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
good.
And we're still like best friends. I just got off the phone with him, actually. I was just talking to him. You know, he became a cop really late in life, like in his 40s.
Okay.
He'd done nothing but IT up until then, startup stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But he was doing BJJ and he was doing CrossFit and he was shooting and, you know, he won the IDPA national championships and he was a GM in USPSA. And he kind of got to that midlife crisis of, you know, why have I done this my whole life and never actually used it for anything?
Yeah.
So I will be honest, and I know you're going to hear this less, but I did try talking him out of it. Not because he's not a good cop. He's exactly who you want to be a cop, which is why I didn't want the job to screw him over.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's not the job that I started in 1997. You know, it's not the same world. And the risks now are so high, even if you do everything right. But it seems like he's got a real supportive department down there and he's having a great time. And like I said, he's exactly the kind of person you'd want to be a cop.
Right.
You know, because he's got all the hard skills, but he's also not a jagoff. Like he knows how to talk to people and put himself in their shoes and not just be a bully.
Right.
So his department is better off for having him, even if I tried to keep him from doing it.
Interesting. Yeah.
But where were we going with that? I was going somewhere with Les, and then we got on a tangent.
I mean, like, let's go back a year, even a year or 2 years. Not a lot of law enforcement I didn't see a lot of law enforcement competitions, but just within the last couple months, I saw that match, the Southeast Law Enforcement Classic. I think it's that one. Please don't quote me. And then now I saw the West Coast version. So I know another match or another group of people are starting a law enforcement only match in Southern California. And it's like, dude, like that's awesome.
Well, there's one in Dallas.
So wait, which one?
It hasn't happened yet. It's in September. I signed up for it, but I think I may not be able to make it because of IDPA Nationals. But the guy's name is Chancey Pogue.
Oh yeah,
great action hero name. I love that.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? That's like the name of a Von Damme character from the '90s. But he's a really good shooter, and I can actually I think take at least part of the credit for getting him into competition because he came to my class years ago, and like kind of got the fire, you know. But he's a great shooter and just a great guy, and he's putting that match on, and it's going to be nothing but LE. You should definitely sign up for it.
I'm already signed up for it.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. So I've shot with him maybe once or twice, not in the same squad, but I've known of him. I've shot with guys in his department also, and he's kind of like the Pied Piper of trying to bring the law enforcement together in this area. There's a good communication, and when he reached out and mentioned that class, I signed up for it, and I'm looking forward to that match. So yeah, going back to that, there now more and more law enforcement are joining competitions, and I'm excited to see that because we see a lot of aha moments. Either they'll stick around and try to get better, or they don't want to come back because they need to reflect more on life.
Well, it's easy to justify it, right? Like when I started it, almost nobody in law enforcement was doing it. Out of 13,500 cops on CPD, when I started USPSA, let's say when I made master, there were 2 other master class shooters and 1 GM out of 13,500 people. And like almost no one else that even competed, right? Like just a handful of other people that competed. And that's a pretty small percentage of that many cops. It's gotten a lot better. And I have some thoughts on that too, that we might circle back around to, but it's nice to see that the stigma, you know, oh, that'll get you killed. People are realizing that that's not the case. I think a friend of mine, Mike Pannone, I think put it the best. He goes, if you can't tell the difference between a cardboard target and someone trying to kill you, you have bigger problems than I can fix in a 2-day class.
I like that.
You know, but it's such a good, like we said, it's like it is the best way I found to improve your shooting skills. And those hard skills aren't everything, but if you don't have those, none of the other stuff matters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you still need the other stuff, but without that foundation of those skills, you're trying to build a castle on sand. It's not going to work.
Right.
But yeah, so, and once again, where were we going with all this? We were talking about the matches. I got sidetracked again.
With the amount of law enforcement joining competitions these days, I would say it's showing the trend of there's a lot more officers who want to get better at this game. And it is interesting, like you mentioned, that I started competing before getting into this career. It makes you wonder what your career path would look like if you were competing before you got that deep into the military and law enforcement. So and I can't wait to see where I go, but hopefully it stays safe at least.
Oh no, I'm sure you'll go far. And I'll use an example from the special forces world, right? So I met a guy it was actually at a Frank Proctor class in Indiana, young kid, really good shooter, USPSA master class at the time. He wound up taking a Chuck Pressburg CQB class. You know who Chuck is?
It sounds familiar.
He's a really good instructor, former unit guy, like really solid. But he told me that this guy picked up CQB faster than anyone else he'd ever taught it to, because of the foundation of being that high up in USPSA. Mm-hmm. So I think if I'd done them in the other order, I don't think it would have changed what I did in my career, but it would have been a lot easier to do the things I did in my career, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, I think it gives you, like, another good way to put it is you've got to have the bandwidth to evaluate your environment and make decisions. And if you can shoot at that high of a level and move at that high of a level without conscious thought, then you have the bandwidth to do it. You watch guys on dash cam and body cam videos, and they're just overcome by events. Like, they can't process because they have to think about the shooting. The shooting isn't a subconscious task for them. And that's going to give you a huge leg up, I bet. You can remind me I said this when you make the SWAT team.
That's up there in aspirations. We will see if I can meet that. It's up there. Yeah.
So what are your general impressions of the training you've received so far? Because you just got out of the academy like half a year ago, right?
Roughly, yeah, about 7 months. Yeah. I can say that the academy was the academy, and bringing my shooting background to it, I was excited to see what the range would offer me there, because I thought I would. And granted, they did teach me a lot of things, but man, I just remember by the second day they told me, like, listen, we have a specific target, and the ghost ring in the center is ideal, but if you don't hit it, at least you hit like the equivalent of an A zone. They told me anything outside of the ghost ring was a miss. That's okay. Yeah, I'll accept that, but that was like the upper limit that they could give me, because I had like 20 other classmates who had to learn how to shoot also.
Yep.
So they were teaching to the lowest hanging fruit, making sure that they can stay with the whole class. And granted, my class was pretty good. We actually got the shooting streamer award that hasn't been given in like 5 classes or something. So it's like, cool. My class can shoot, and then of course with me shooting, I got a refresher on how to shoot defensively. But with my background in competitive shooting, it did help me learn everything immediately quicker. I can move and shoot and manipulate everything, reload, compared to everyone else in my class. So it was a basic good time. Yeah.
You know, and that's kind of like, speaking as somebody who's taught recruits in the academy, like, I ran training for SWAT, but years before that, I was working in the academy as a firearms instructor. And I've taught like Afghan commandos that can't do jumping jacks overseas, right? There are challenges trying to do good institutional training. You know, you're kind of limited to part-times because you don't have the time available to go down and time everybody individually on the drills, you know. Mm-hmm. And we could argue about making the part-times tighter or the accuracy standards tighter or both. But then the problem lies in the fact that you're trying to get people to a level of sufficient competence to do the job as rapidly as possible. And they may be in a gunfight the day after you're done with them. Like they could literally walk out of the academy and their first night at work get in a gunfight. So you can't, like one of the things you can afford to do as a competitor that I never got to do, and I'm so mad about it, is you can literally intentionally go, okay, for the next 6 months, I'm going to suck because all I'm going to work on is trying to get faster. And it's okay if I throw misses. It's okay if I do crappy in local matches because at the end of it, I'll come out faster. You can't have cops do that.
Correct. Yeah.
You know, because if they're stuck in that speed mode all the time, it's not tanking a match for them. It's potentially losing their job or going to jail.
Mm-hmm.
So it really kind of hamstrings what you're able to do with them, you know, speaking as an instructor. And like there's this big debate on the internet about hit factor training for law enforcement and military right now. And here's my honest appraisal of that as somebody from both worlds, right? In a perfect world, that would be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But you simply can't run. How many people were in your class at the academy?
About 23.
And how many hours of firearms training did you get in the entire academy?
Man, not a lot. I'm just gonna say not a lot.
Yeah, probably 80 hours, probably.
Yeah, there's
Well,
that.
something like that, right?
Yeah, the T-Cole. Yes.
So think about the challenge of trying to do anything meaningful with hit factor with that many people and that many hours when you also have to get all these other skills, you know, how to do a malfunction clearance if you've been shot, like all this stuff that they have to know. It makes it really hard to get to where they're running LPRES hit factor. Am I making sense?
Yes. Yes.
I think the place it has in military and law enforcement is internal within a team. Like I did a lot of hit factor stuff with my guys on SWAT because I could. Because I had, when I was a trainer for SWAT, I had one squad of people at a time. So I had 10 to 12 guys at a time. And I could do it. And we had the whole day at the range. You know what I mean? They already had the basics. They already had the fundamentals. They're already good shooters. They already knew how to manipulate a gun. They were already safe. So I could do that. I think that's the place for it in law enforcement. I'm going to have a bunch of angry comments on this video for this.
We'll see.
The internet has no nuance. It's binary. It's on or off, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is that the real world, especially training for skill development in an institutional setting, there is nuance, right? And there are legal considerations. There are optics considerations. As horrible as that is, it's the world we live in now. It's not the world I was in when I was a brand new recruit. So because of all of those things, you've got to be realistic. Like here's a flip side to this coin. I got into it with a buddy of mine. I'm not going to mention his name, but you know the name because he's a big trainer who used to be in special operations in the Army. And he's always upset about the skill level on SWAT teams when he trains SWAT teams. He gets all bent out of shape. Even to the point where he's claimed that like there's really no good SWAT teams out there. Right. But the problem, sorry.
I got a Amber Alert, my bad.
Okay, I'm gonna reboot it so that I can edit that little bit out.
Please.
So, and here's a flip side to the same coin. You know, like there's a buddy of mine, and I'm not going to say his name, but you'd know it because he's very big in the training community now, especially for law enforcement and for competitive shooters. And he's a former military special operations guy who's a GM. And he's always upset about the skill level he sees on SWAT teams. Like he's always legitimately upset about it. And on the one hand, I get that. But on the other hand, he's not being realistic about this. You know, it isn't the Army that has this huge pool of people to draw from where they can be very, very selective when they run their selection courses, right? And their training courses.
Mm-hmm.
The talent pool is smaller, even on a department the size that I was on, which is huge for a police department. At the time, we were number 2 after New York. Now I think we're number 3 after New York and Houston, right?
Okay.
So a huge amount of cops. It's still nowhere near the talent pool you get in the Army when you run a selection for special forces, right? And then you can't do the same level of intensive training because, you know, unions and OSHA and all those legalities of being a civilian where you can't just keep people and make them sleep 4 hours a night and eat 1 meal a day and, you know, do all the stuff that you do to SF guys. And it's The flip side of what he says is that there are some very good teams out there. Like I'm very proud of the team I came from. When I left, there were some guys there that were just top notch. Like it was a solid team by law enforcement standards, right? But it's going to be a different animal than what the guy I'm talking about is used to. So it does no good to just get argumentative and put people down and say that, law enforcement's horrible and the skill levels are bad and nobody's training right, because you're ignoring the realities of what they have to do. And it's kind of like that with recruit training, right? Like these are the realities. You're given someone who may have never shot a gun before, may have no interest in shooting, isn't going to dry fire. They're not going to dry fire. They're not going to practice unless the department makes them. And you've got to give them the skills to not only survive, but prevail and save lives. Like that's a very limiting thing, right? You've got to do things like press out draws and some of the other stuff they do that would be a limiting factor for a competitor, just because it makes sense in that context. And I think people lose sight of that. They want this idea, and I was guilty of this when I was younger. I was very idealistic. You want these, you want this idealized state of things where everybody is as good as an SF guy and they're in phenomenal shape and they've got, a purple belt in BJJ and they're master class in USPSA and they can talk to people and they, are good detectives and they can drive like they've been to NTAC, the special operations driving course, right? But that's just not realistic given the funding and the personnel, and it never will be. So you've got to do what you can for everybody. And then when you see somebody like you come through, you've got to kind of do what you can extra for them and make sure that you're around for them after the fact. And that's really all you can do, unfortunately, I think.
Yeah, that's the funny thing I think about it pretty often is, like, I'm not saying it's the only thing I'm good at, but like the one thing I'm really good at is something that I can't show every day at work. And because that's not happening every day, but when that day comes, hopefully it helps me. From the mindset of a rookie, like I see my classmates, I see all the fresh officers, I see also the old heads out there. Like we want to make sure that we're staying constitutional with everyone, respectful also, because treating all our citizens with respect.
Yep.
Shooting is honestly on such a back end for a lot of officers because there's so many more things to focus on besides shooting, but shooting can save lives. It's really tough for officers these days. You're right.
Well, even before the current political climate, right? I used to always say that being a city cop was at the same time the easiest and the hardest job in the world. Because if all you wanted to do was answer the radio when they made you and hide the rest of the time, because back then there were no car GPSs or video, right? So you could sit in a parking lot for 8 hours and nobody would know as long as you answered the radio. So it was very easy to do it at the base level, right? Where you wouldn't get in trouble and you keep your job. But it was the hardest job I'd ever had to do really, really well. Because the sheer number of things you have to be truly good at to be a good, well-rounded cop is huge.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be able to do good at interviewing. You got to be able to know body language. You got to be able to just talk to people. Like if you can't talk to somebody, you're not a good cop. I don't care how tough you are. Because if you can't talk to anybody, you're not going to solve any crimes. It's never going to happen, right?
Yeah.
You've got to have the legal knowledge. I mean, quite honestly, every truly good cop I've ever known has known more about criminal law than the lawyers we dealt with. The good cops, not the bad ones, but the good cops, And I won't say every lawyer, but you know what I mean.
I do.
And you've got to be a good driver. You drive more than you do anything else. That's the most dangerous thing you do as a cop, right? Especially the pursuit driving. Lots of cops get killed doing pursuit driving. So you got to be good at all these things. You got to be good at first aid. You've got to be good at, disaster management, like the floods we just had. How many beat cops in Round Rock wound up like on a flood scene from the flash floods having to deal with stuff, right?
Right.
There's this huge volume of things you have to be conversant with at a high level to be good at that job. It's kind of like putting into context what I said about the average Green Beret being like low B, high A, right? But you got to take into account the fact that they're also doing parachute jumping. Some of them are doing scuba diving. Some of them are doing mountain climbing. They're all doing road marching. They're all got to be in good shape. They've all got to work on these computer skills for all the planning process that goes on now. They got to be able to fly drones now. They got to be able to drive, military vehicles. They've got to know all these weapon systems. They got to know all these radios. They've got to have all this stuff they have to practice. They don't have enough time to truly master all of them. They simply don't.
Right.
And their job, honestly, requires them to be more of a jack of all trades than a master of one, by far.
Yep. I understand that.
And like I said, it's the same way with a cop. Like, God, there's so many things you got to be good at. And I don't think people realize that. They have these expectations of their law enforcement officers that don't match the reality of the job they're forced to do or the resources they're given to do it.
Right.
It's a hard thing to optimize, right? I won't say it's a hard problem to solve because I don't really look at it that way. It's more optimizing it to the best level you can for everybody. And I don't think there's any one answer to that. I think the biggest thing would be to kind of instill a culture on a department where people want to be good at stuff. And if you do that, they'll sort it out. They'll figure out how to balance things and work on things.
Yeah. There's some, incentives I can imagine. Like some departments out there are giving, I don't know. I think I've seen it before. Higher pay for being able to pass additional fitness testing. That's one way of like having healthier officers. I don't know of any department that's giving incentive pay for being a better shot.
I do, actually.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So we had the fitness pay, and then what people discovered, the bosses discovered, was that basically you wind up paying the people who would be fit anyway. Like you wind up paying the people who would be in good shape whether you paid them or not, and the ones that weren't going to be in good shape still weren't in good shape, right? They just didn't care.
Okay.
Yeah, it was not the incentive that we thought it was going to be. But then the shooting, LAPD does this. They have their basic qual and their advanced qual, and if you want to carry like a 2011 or some of the other guns that aren't the standard issue gun, you have to pass the advanced qual, and you get a stipend for it, just like you do for fitness. It's like a one-time-a-year extra payment for passing it. But once again, what you're winding up there is you're winding up with guys like you and me getting the money and carrying the cool guns, and the guys who would be carrying the revolver are still going to be carrying the revolver.
Okay. People just have their own priorities, I see.
Yeah, no, I think it would have to be the amount of money it would take to change someone's outlook and habits is more than the department can afford.
Okay. Yeah.
I think. I'm not saying it couldn't be done, but I just don't think most departments can budget for it. Because a couple $100 just isn't enough to get somebody that doesn't want to do it already to do it.
Wow. I'm going to have to look back at my research now thinking about this because I don't know if this is going to be down the line for me, but like with my background and in research, I wonder if this is something I can offer my department down the line if I go that route. I don't want to do that route, honestly, right now, though, but like the reasons why people do things. 'Cause that's like I did my thesis in college was on what gets people to weightlift, for example. And the theory of planned behavior is what I used to find out. But I'm not saying that my study went to crap, but there was a lot of skewed things in there because I know this is like a little bit of tangent, but I was looking at different ethnicities and why they chose to lift weights. But all those ethnicities were also American. So I was trying to find out if like Filipino Americans, Chinese Americans, Vietnamese Americans, Japanese Americans, why they chose to weightlift. Instead, my results showed that, they were all still American. So anyways, I just imagine what we could find in a pool of officers on why they do things with that one. Little tangent. You got me thinking.
No, that sounds like I'd like to read the study. Actually, that'd be a good study. I got my degrees after I was already a cop.
Mhm.
So I went to college early, right? I went to college at 16 because they thought I was smart. I had them fooled. And when I got there, my martial arts teacher at the time swore to me that traditional Japanese karate was going to be in the next Olympics. Just swore up and down that it was a done deal. It was in the bag. The Olympic committee had already decided it, right? So me being young and very dedicated to my sport at the time, totally blew my classes so I could train, thinking I would be in the Olympics. 2 years later, I was in the Army.
Okay.
without a degree, right? But I went back and finished up my bachelor's and got my master's while I was a cop, right? So my thesis in grad school was on how quality of training impacts use of force scandals.
Whoa.
Because my thesis there was that the better trained a cop is, the less likely they are to do something that will wind up looking bad on camera. Because I think most of what people consider to be bad use of force, whether they're accurate or not, because a lot of times violence is ugly. So people see it and they don't realize that it's actually perfectly within department policy and law, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's a separate issue. That my thesis wasn't about that. But what happens, I think, especially in legitimately bad uses of force in the majority of cases, most of the time it's not because the cop was a bully or wanted to hurt someone or set out that day to hurt a minority. Like, that's not what happened. What happened is they did not feel sufficiently prepared for the situation they were in and they wanted to go home.
Mm.
So if the only tool you have is the hammer, then everything looks like a nail. And if you're terrified you'll lose your life if that hammer doesn't get inside that board, you're going to hit it really hard. I mean, it's just human nature, right?
Yeah.
So I think that, and this was specifically more in combatives than shooting, right? I hate the word defensive tactics. It's a bad term. But I think I used defensive tactics in the thesis, though. I have to admit, you still got to play for the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
But my theory on this was that cops who know how to fight don't wind up getting in this overuse of force out of panic and fear. And I think the same holds true for shooting as well. Like, if you know you can shoot really well as a cop, then you know what you can get away with, so you're liable to give it that extra beat or two to diffuse it before you actually go to the gun. Even if the gun is out. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Because you know that if it goes south, you still have the time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that positively impacts things. And I wish police brass has a bad habit of not understanding training. And it's not that they don't want training for their people in most cases, I think. It's that they don't realize what training truly entails. Like, they conflate qualification with training for firearms, right?
Right.
And let's face it, most police qualification courses aren't even good sobriety tests. And no qualification is training. It's a test. Testing isn't training. Testing is evaluation, So, like, it just seems like the brass, and then they I love this one too. They'll send you to a 40-hour instructor's class in something. This has happened to me more times than I can count in my career. And you come back and your boss is like, well, you're the expert. I'm like, no, I'm not.
Right.
That was 1 week. You sent me somewhere for 1 week. 1 week. I'm not an expert at that at all. Well, why not? Didn't you apply yourself? I'm like, no, I did apply myself. It's 1 week.
Mm-hmm.
Name me anything that takes any skill that anybody can master in 1 week. I don't care how talented you are. It can't be done.
Nope.
So I think those issues of misunderstanding training are, I think, part of the biggest problem in law enforcement. And I think it's gotten better since my day. Like, more people are competing, more bosses are coming up that had more of a training positive culture. So it is changing. It's just changing slowly. A good friend of mine, Brian Williams, right now he's the deputy chief at Williamson County in charge of their training division and their SWAT guys. That's a retirement gig for him. He's actually the retired police chief in Round Rock.
Okay.
But he also made Grandmaster in USPSA in the 90s.
Kudos.
And can still run a gun. Like, he loves to shoot, loves to train. But that's not the norm, right? That's an aberration. That's statistically insignificant because the norm, unfortunately, in police work, it seems that the people that get promoted to the highest levels are the ones that did the least as officers. Not always. It's not universal.
Mm-hmm.
But and it's because they're not controversial. There's nothing attached to their name that the department thinks is like potentially negative, even if it wasn't actually negative. And I think that people that are very active cops, I know this is true for me, you wind up upsetting a lot of the bosses just by your sheer activity because they look at that as potential problems.
Mm-hmm.
Every time you're proactive, they think of it as a potential issue for the department.
Okay, I'm learning something.
Yeah. Well, it's just because, what creates these situations that look bad? Proactive law enforcement, for the most part, right?
Okay.
And they mistrust, not everybody. I'm not even saying it's, overwhelmingly a majority, but in my experience, it was definitely a majority of bosses. Had never been truly hardworking police because they knew that if they kept their noses clean and didn't get involved in anything controversial, it would be easier to move up the ranks. So they looked at it as politics instead of a craft.
Mm.
Right. And I think that's a real problem. I think there needs to be some way, and I don't know how. I don't know how to fix it. But there should be some way of ensuring that the people you promote, and I'm not saying they have to be the best street cops in the world, but they should have enough of a seasoning to understand what their officers are doing and why and how it's happening. Like a good example of this is I did a RIP one time. A RIP is where, for the viewers out there that don't know this, a RIP is where you legally steal a drug dealer's money. Right?
Interesting.
So basically the way it works is you did a deal into this guy. So you have probable cause. You know the money's drug money because you either have an informant that told you it is or you did a deal into it and it gets seized to later get used against him in court and gets inventory. You don't keep the money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I went and I did a RIP and I called my lieutenant. I was a sergeant at the time. And I called my lieutenant just to inform him that we did the RIP. I'd already informed internal affairs. You have to inform internal affairs in your chain of command, and that's it. And you don't have to inform them ahead of time, as long as you do it immediately after, at least in Chicago, right? So I called up my lieutenant, who's a very nice guy who had never done a lick of real police work in his entire life. And I said, I just want to let you know we just did a RIP on so-and-so in Inglewood. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, we took his money. What? What? Why are you telling me this on the phone? What are you talking about? Did anybody see you? I'm like, no, boss, I already called internal affairs. It was a RIP. We inventoried his money. We can do that? I'm like, you're a lieutenant in the organized crime division. You don't know that we can do that? I think I aged him like 10 years that day. I think I shortened his lifespan. Unintentionally. Yeah. Like I said, he was actually a really nice guy. Like he was looking out for his people. He just didn't understand that that was something you could legally do and it was okay. Mm-hmm. Because he'd never done it himself.
I feel pretty confident, or at least, I mean, me being such a fresh rookie, with my exposure to my chain of command, maybe I'm lucky. I'm at a good station, especially with my trainers too. I learned a lot from them, and maybe I just haven't seen anything bad yet or I don't know, bad stories, whatnot. But I guess I'm one of the lucky ones, and I'm still pretty fresh.
And I don't want to overstate it. Like I'm not trying to be negative about what lays ahead of you, because there's so many wonderful things in a career in law enforcement, especially if you have good bosses and a good environment to work in. So I'm just trying to it's more about the training aspect. Like, how do you fix that? How do you get the bosses to understand the value of it? You see what I'm saying? Like I said, this boss was actually a great guy. And once I explained it to him, he was fine. It wasn't like he had his nose bent out of joint once he understood. But I guess that story for me just kind of emphasizes the fact that we need a better system for ensuring that bosses understand things like that and the value of training and how training actually needs to be done. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I'm not saying it's out of my pay grade. definitely is on how to get more people involved. But you have people like me. I mean, I love the game. I love this sport of competitive shooting that I try to bring as many people into it as much as possible. It's like a few of my classmates, I've brought them in, and the couple that have stuck with it have shown tremendous improvement beyond what they did in the academy and before they haven't even stepped into a match yet, but they want me to teach them so that they're ready for a match. I'm like, bro, you're already ready. Just let's go. But I don't know. I've seen them shoot now over the past few months, and I'm happy to say that I've converted a few people already.
Good deal. So let's well, first off, when you bring them to a match, let me know. Maybe if it's something we can do, like centrally located enough between me and you guys, maybe I can meet you guys out there.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to shoot with you in real life. I always see your name on the leaderboards. So, Ace.
Wait, where are you located again?
I am just south of Austin. I'm in Lockhart.
Okay. Yeah. Oh man, that's easy. We can find a match. Yes.
Yeah, there's plenty down here for sure. No, we need to shoot together in the real world, without a doubt. So that's a pretty good topic. Let's touch on that. How do you feel like I am so sold on Ace, man. I think it's the greatest thing for shooting training since guns.
Mhm.
Like tell me your thoughts on it. What do you think about it?
It was and still is fun to play, especially when you have like what brings me the most joy in shooting is not just getting better, but also the people around me. If I'm having a good time, if they're having a good time, then I just have even more of a better time. But for Ace specifically, they approached me, I want to say in 2023, like 2 years ago, and I went super hard playing that. I remember seeing all of our round counts and comparing it and whatnot. I just saw yours. Oh my God. I'm sorry to say that I stopped playing for a bit because of this transition from my past job to now the academy and
Yeah.
then now getting used to the streets. That's why I took a little hiatus from it. I still play every now and then a little bit, but the amount of training I got from Ace versus spending all this money to go out and to matches and all the ammo shortages and all that, like Ace was everything for me. And then like a lot of people ask me, where have I been? Because they just haven't seen me shooting competitions. But then when I show up to these competitions, I'm still dunking. And it's like, how's that even possible? And I don't tell them I even dry fire because I just play ace because I get trigger time doing that. There was one match I'll highlight. It was last year. It was Cinco de Plinko, put up by the Mansfield shooting team,
Yeah.
and I purposefully did not dry fire for a month, or was it 2 months? I want to say it's at least a month. I didn't touch my Beretta for an entire month. All I did was play ace, and I still podiumed, finished at that match. And I was pretty happy about that. This last Mansfield match, I definitely didn't podium on it because there was a lot of heat, but I didn't touch my Beretta for 8 months. For 8 months, and all I did was play ace for a little bit, and then I still did pretty well. And that was actually the first time I hit a .09 split with my Beretta. It was pretty funny when that happened. I was like, I haven't shot this gun in 8 months. How is that even possible? Ace.
So I do not have what I call a happy finger. Some people just naturally have fast splits.
Sure.
My splits have always been pretty pokey. I think it's because of the fact that it's so much like tactical shooting before competition.
Mm.
But one of the things that I have noticed from Ace too is better splits. And now like I won't do it all the time. And my average split is probably still between, depending on the target, obviously between 0.17 and 0.2, right? Because when I'm actually applying stuff, right? But then every once in a while I'll pop like an 11, like usually at least a couple times a week. And every time I do it, I get this feeling inside of like, oh, wow, that was pretty damn cool. I wonder if I can do it again. And then of course I can't do it again.
Man.
But I think that the amount of feedback you get from Ace is why it's better in my mind than one of the reasons why it's better than regular dry fire. because it's literally got all the metrics of live fire right there. And they've done such a good job with the physics that it's because I've done some testing where I'll do like a drill in ace and then I'll go shoot at live fire. And I've even posted some of it where I'll put it up on YouTube or whatever, and it's split screen, and it's the same performance. Like it's comparable hits, it's comparable times between live fire and ace, and I can't do that with dry fire.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
it's so easy to kind of cheat yourself a little bit in dry fire, even just a little bit. You know?
Yep.
So I like that, and I think also like part of the deep dive I did to get better at shooting when I started competing, I looked a lot into like sports psychology and all of that stuff, right? And there is no difference between a sufficiently visualized repetition of a skill and an actual physical repetition of a skill. Like there's your brain doesn't understand the difference. If you visualize it correctly, you're improving the skill.
Sure.
That's the good news. The bad news is that's really, really hard to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the headset kind of does that for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had a couple comments or people ask me about the fact that you don't see your hands. And they're like, well, that's not going to be real. I'm like, you don't even think about that.
Who's paying attention to that?
Yeah, you don't think about that. You're thinking about the sights. Like you're not thinking about it. It doesn't matter. That part doesn't matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just watching those sights come up and down and getting the hits and doing it, progressively quicker and quicker is what it's about. Not could I see my hands?
Yeah. I'm paying attention to my target more than anything else in ace. Yeah.
Well, even like imagine doing a walkthrough for a stage, right? Like when you visualize your walkthrough, I bet you visualize your sights, whether it's optic or irons.
Oh yeah, of course.
But do you visualize the entire gun or just watching that dot?
I think that's very subconscious. Well, I mean, when we're doing walkthroughs, are we thinking of our grip, a strong grip, but not crazy strong? Because I still want to get the split. Like,
yep.
I know splits aren't everything, but for me, I'm not exactly the fastest person on my feet, but my splits have been my saving grace in a few arrays. So,
dude, your splits are stupid fast. Yeah.
It helps me at least. I know they're not everything, but it helps me, especially in ace. I don't know. I mean, going back to that one, like that's our playground. That's where we can experiment. If like I let a lot of my buddies play ace on my account, and then they'll see it and they're like, "How are you getting a 3-second stage run when I'm doing it in a 6-second? Like, how are you halving the time?" I'm like, "Well, the transitions and splits all adds up."
Well, and I think we're the point. I was trying to say the point of the sport. We're at the point in the sport of USPSA where splits are starting to matter. Like the conventional wisdom was always like your split speed doesn't matter. It's your transition speed and your movement speed and your accuracy, right?
Mm.
But everybody has gotten so good. Like the skill level's just gone through the roof.
Yeah.
And I think we're at the point now where splits do matter. Like I think it's gotten to that,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're anywhere near the top.
Right. The question is how do we work on the splits? And everyone has their own training methods, but for me, I mean, like I've been blessed. So before I got into this new career, I competed with a Beretta that was it's a Langdonized Beretta. So that trigger is very light with a very nice reset also. And fortunately, when I got into ace, I had my buddy Charles help me with my trigger, and we were able to match to have it feel pretty similar.
Yeah.
And
Charles does good work, man. He does good stuff.
Yes, he does. Shout out to him. There's something that I learned back when I was in college on overspeed training. And for example, the whole like putting a donut on a baseball bat and trying to swing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Are there shoots for sprinters? Are the swimming into the artificial current for swimmers? Or
right.
All that stuff. Yeah.
But how about making it lighter, swinging a wiffle bat, or overspeed training where you are getting pulled by a bungee cord and sprinting, so you're training faster.
Yep.
Right. So
are doing the artificial pool again, but with the back current this time.
Correct. Yes. So now you have, I guess, support in that way. And so when I'm training with my Ace trigger, which feels a little lighter, I'm able to press that trigger faster potentially. And that literally, like, I don't know, that was the fastest split I've ever had. Like, so I can split maybe like with my Beretta, I can get 12, 13 splits on demand, but 10 splits, pretty fun. But that when that .09 split came out, I was like, I haven't touched this gun in 8 months. I have no idea where it came, and it has to go back to my Ace because my trigger is, I'll say it's lighter, so it helps me train faster.
I have a theory about, so in my classes, when I teach the Blake drill, I teach it with a very specific training methodology for people, right? Because I don't want them to look at it as shooting a target array like they would in a match or shooting multiple threats like they would in a real life fight. I want them to think of it as overspeed training with the gun. I'm like, I want you to pull the trigger as fast as possible and then try to make the gun be there. And nobody can do it at first. People are sliding hits off of targets and, shooting before they get to the target. But that's one of my modes of training now that I've been working on specifically for what you're talking about. Like say steel challenge stuff in Ace. Like I'll do a couple of cold reps that are within my wheelhouse easily. Like what I would do, first run in a match. Right. And then I'll push a little bit like a normal pushing pace where, I'm still trying to make sure I hit every plate, but I'm going to where it's just a bit uncomfortable. Right. And then, and I think of that as like, to use the Steve Anderson term, like that to me is speed mode, right? But then I don't know what you would call this other mode that I've been doing. I should come up with a name for it because, nothing is real till you've named it, right?
Sure.
But when I do this, and I try not to do too much of it because I don't want to give myself bad habits. Like it's like an intensity technique for your weightlifting. You know what I mean? If you do too much, you get weaker. If you do just the right amount, you get stronger.
Sure.
Where in this mode, all I care about is seeing what I did. So in other words, I don't care if I miss every plate. If I know where the dot was every time I press the trigger, then that's okay. And that way I'm not just blindly throwing the gun around, but I'm moving way faster than I could move and get any sort of level of accuracy, right?
But understand that what you still did.
Yeah. So my only goal for those reps is to see, to move as fast as I possibly can and to see. And we'll see if it pays off. I haven't been doing it that long, but it feels like it's giving me dividends in speed. And based on my background, speed is where I lack. Like I'm a very technical shooter because of the things I did for a living. But I would like to be faster.
Yeah. It's funny that you bring that up because especially during the academy, that was the one thing that the range guys would tell me often to slow down. But in the back of my head, I'm like, I don't want to slow down because we shouldn't slow down. Because if you slow down, what does that change? That doesn't really change much. But I understand, or I have thought about it. I guess every day I wake up for this job is like, you cannot miss anything.
No.
And so I am the reverse of you, where I need to really think about, I need to be accurate. Whereas back before this career, I'm thinking I want to go as fast as possible. So yeah, that's very interesting that we're the reverse.
Well, and I think that's kind of natural based on the backgrounds, right? And shifting to the other person's background at the point in life that we've done it. But then the other thing I'm really working on lately that kind of ties into this is something that I see like the really top shooters I know, the really, really good ones all have this, is this like impeccable mental transmission. Where you give them like a desired outcome. Like, okay, so now it's, top half of the A zone and nothing else matters. Or now it's 2 on brown and go as fast as you can. And they can seamlessly shift the appropriate gear for their skill level and be dead on to it. Like they're getting exactly the result they want. And I think that's one of the hardest things to do as a shooter is to have that transmission. And I think having that transmission solves a lot of problems, both for competitors and for the real world.
That's like next level. That's like next level competitor because not everyone can do that.
No.
I have, like, for example, this is crazy, but I have a buddy who has a condition. He cannot visualize. I'll have to find out the word and tell you about it later. I don't know the word right now, but like growing up when he was a kid, he hated reading books because when normal people read books, they can visualize what they're seeing in the book.
Yeah,
He
they
had
have
a
a they have a
condition.
movie in their head. Yeah.
Exactly. He doesn't have a movie in his head. Someone will tell him to imagine an apple in your head. He cannot visualize an apple in his head. So there are
That,
people that cannot visualize.
that's horrible. I almost think I'd rather be blind, to be honest. Like that's
It's like you're
awful.
blind. It's like you're blind. So I'll ask him again what that term was, that word was, and I'll share it with you because who knows, maybe these are gonna be some of your students, right?
Yeah, no, that's true.
So
Well,
there's
and
that level.
well, I know, and everybody's got it to a different degree, right? Like I was talking with somebody else about this recently, where I think it was Tim Heron, where some people can visualize in incredibly great detail, and some people can't. And the trick is figuring out how to visualize in the detail you need to make it work for you, but it doesn't have to be the super crisp, clear first person movies some people can do,
Hmm.
you know? But I'd be interested to see what, not literally see, but to understand what is the important part. Like what has to be visualized correctly to burn that stage plan in and perform all.
When
Because
when I
I've been playing around a lot with that lately too, you know?
One thing that it sounds weird, but when I visualize when I'm not at the range, but I want to visualize that I'm training. Sure, we have ace, sure we have dry fire, but when I want to truly feel what I feel at a competition, my visualization also includes other senses that you don't usually feel like. People are like, oh, I'm just going to imagine the stage in my eyes. Well, I like to think about what does it smell like? What does it taste like around there? If I'm at a range, can I taste the dust and dirt to put myself in that emotion, like, and get that gut feeling of being there? Because I take my visualization all the way up there to the max, to
You
that
know,
point.
I'm going to try that because I've actually been working on one of my weaknesses is stage visualization, and I think
Mhm.
that also stems from my earlier careers because it was never done. You know what I mean? Like it just wasn't. You looked at shooting as something you did when you were surprised in the moment, or you were planning to hit a house, right?
Mhm.
Like it
Mhm.
wasn't something that you did as part of the stage. And we would do basically visualizations for SWAT hits where you practice your breach procedures and stuff like that. We did it for SF2. But you weren't visualizing the shootout because the shootout happened independent of what you were visualizing. You were visualizing procedures at the breach point. You were visualizing, you know, your exfil, your infill, the things that you had control over, I guess is the best way to put it.
Sure. Yeah.
Are you visualizing the structure like tape house drills where you're putting the actual floor plan on the ground, but that's more so you know what the floor plan is going to be. You're still not visualizing the gunfight, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So I've been working on it a lot lately, and like I've just now started adding in the feel of the ground under my feet
Yes. Exactly.
because movement is something that I've had a bunch of major surgeries, and I'm by no means young. So let's just say I do not move like Christian Seiler, like it's not happening.
Right.
But I want to optimize how well I do move. I mean, I'm still an athlete. I still train hard. I just have to work around the bionic parts. But I'm trying to visualize that when I visualize my stage run too, like how the gravel feels beneath my feet when I decelerate,
Mhm.
how it feels on the push off when I start the acceleration. I'm trying to visualize the exact point on each target I'm looking at and how the dot lifts. And like I know like some guys like JJ Ricasa tell themselves and they visualize attacker control or some other terms like that.
Mhm.
And I tried doing that and it did not work well for me.
Interesting.
I think it's because by nature I'm an all attack kind of guy and not much control.
Okay.
So, but what I found does work well for me, especially like going back and forth from IDPA to USPSA where the pace is so different, is if I visualize what the dot needs to do on the target at the pace it needs to do it at, that's already burned in. Rather than just I'm looking at this target and putting two on it, it's okay, the dot's going to be right there. The dot's going to do this when it lifts and come back down. And I'm going to have this level of confirmation when I send it again, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
And I'm not saying I can do it clearly yet, but that's what I'm really working on lately, is kind of getting that. Because I think everything kind of boils down to what are the sights doing? And obviously, the trigger, of course. And then how does it feel when I move? Am I exploding right away after the last shot while still confirming the last shot? Am I moving into the transition at exactly the correct point to the next array of targets? It's like those are the things that I'm trying to work on now, which I think will make my USPSA game a lot better and my IDPA game a lot better. And is very different than training specifically just for gunfights, if that makes sense.
Right. I see.
Although I do think it has carryover, because file this one away for when you try out for SWAT. Keep it in your hip pocket. All right. Even though USPSA could not be any more different in terms of the pace or the priorities from CQB without it not involving a gun, right? They're very, very different in terms of the pace and the priorities and the rule set and all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I got so much better at CQB when I got better at USPSA.
Nap.
Because
That's
of
cool.
because of the processing speed.
Mm-hmm.
That and learning to move athletically with a gun. Because I don't know what it is, but you put a gun in people's hands and they could be D1 athletes, and now they're just moving like they have some sort of neurodegenerative disease.
Yep. Yeah.
That's
That's what I'm finding when it is so nice that I have a range to go to for work, because I get to finally. But here's the thing: actually, I won't get into that. But when I go to the range, I go at least twice a month, and the range staff is already making fun of me. It's like, you again type thing. But whenever I go there, and if I see the SWAT team there, some of them have invited me to shoot with them already. And I'm very happy about that, because I get to see how they shoot, they can see how I shoot, and then they can see how easy it is for me to shoot with them like that. And then they find out that, like, oh, I shoot competition. And then they've started to go to competitions too. So it is refreshing to see that that's happening at my department also, that our higher level guys are getting involved in competitive shooting.
And that's good. I mean, it's really good, because like I said, I don't think there's another vehicle for fueling improvement with shooting that's better than competition shooting. Like it turbocharges your improvement.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I am curious to see how long it takes them to snatch you up out of patrol and put you somewhere interesting.
We'll see.
You'll have to let me know.
I'll keep you posted on that. There's some things that I'm aspiring to do in this department. There's a lot of opportunities, so that's one of them. Hopefully.
Well, and we definitely need to shoot a match, so let's figure it out and make it happen.
Oh yeah, we will.
So
After summer.
all right, brother. Well, hope everybody enjoyed this episode as much as I did. For those of you who haven't been involved in law enforcement or the military, maybe you're a defensive shooter or a competitor, it's hard to understand the realities logistically and institutionally of training on a police department or in the military. And I think that conversations like this can give people who carry a gun for self-defense a lot of insights into how to vet where they're getting their information from and what actually makes it good and what not, what actually is good and what's not good. And things may be done for logistical reasons that aren't optimal. And imitating those when you're not constrained by those same logistical constraints is just hindering your own training. So I really enjoyed the conversation, man. Thanks for coming on. I hope everybody else got a lot out of it. And I will talk to everybody out there soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Way is in Training. Please come back again as we explore how training makes us better at our craft and better in our everyday lives. See all of you soon.